Yeah, I mean, there's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her. I knew it as an opponent, and I see it as her coach. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is. And we've got to help her learn to adjust and use it against them in certain ways.
Do you think Caitlin Clark is already mentally checking out of Indiana after seeing how Stephanie White has handled her injury situation? Let's be brutally honest here. Stephanie White's handling of Caitlin Clark has been about as smooth as sandpaper on silk. Clark has missed multiple games this season due to groin injuries, and White's response has been less than inspiring. When your franchise player is dealing with recurring injuries and you're acting like it's just another day at the office, you've got problems. The pattern has been crystal clear from day one. There are signs that White and Clark aren't totally on the same page about Clark's role in the offense. White keeps trying to play Clark off the ball, despite Clark explicitly stating she's at her best when she has the ball in her hands, especially in transition. But does White listen? Of course not. She's too busy implementing her system to realize she's got a generational talent who needs the ball to be effective. 10 games. That's not just bad luck, that's a pattern. And what's White's reaction when asked about Clark's injury concerns? We went through semi-live shooting drills. She still hasn't gone full speed in a practice or live defensive group. Real reassuring there, coach. After suffering a right groin injury in the final minute of Tuesday's 85-77 win over the Connecticut Sun. She was literally in tears on the bench, and White's response was basically a shrug. White told reporters after Tuesday's game that Clark felt a little something in her groin. A little something? Your star player is crying on the bench, and you call it a little something? The disconnect is absolutely staggering. Here's where it gets really interesting. The New York Liberty have been circling like sharks around Clark, and honestly, who can blame them? New York Liberty CEO Kea Clark acknowledges that Clark has had an undeniable impact on recent business growth and came in and lit a fire. They see the value that White apparently doesn't fully appreciate. Remember when Clark scored a season-high 32 points and equaled a career-high 7 three-pointers on her return from injury as the Indiana Fever defeated the New York Liberty 102-88? That was Clark showing what she can do when she's healthy and in the right mindset. But what happened next? More injuries, more missed games, and more questionable coaching decisions from White. Clark selected New York Liberty guard Sabrina Ionescu number 3 overall in the All-Star draft. That's not just a basketball decision. That's Clark showing respect for a player who's been in her shoes, dealing with similar pressure and expectations. The mutual respect between Clark and Liberty players is obvious, and it's something she's clearly not feeling with her current coaching staff. White's approach to Clark's playing time has been questionable at best. White said she likes the ability to have 2 primary ball handlers on the floor, and specifically mentioned not wanting Clark to play under duress 94 feet the entire time she's on the floor. This is your franchise player we're talking about. The person who single-handedly elevated the entire WNBA's profile, and you're worried about her playing too much? The coaching philosophy clash is becoming more apparent by the day. Clark stated plainly, "I think we need to do a better job of getting me the ball in transition. Whether somebody is there or not."
Caitlin, I saw you having a long conversation with the official. Walk me through your perspective on the flagrant foul, and what was the point you were trying to make to her?
It's just a good take foul, you know? If either Angel gets wide open 2 points or, we send him to the free throw line. Nothing malicious about it. It's just a good take foul. Every basketball player knows that.
You adjust your system to help them. You don't just shrug and say you're not worried about their shot. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Clark's contract situation. She's in her 2nd year, which means she's got time to think about her future. The Liberty aren't just a well-run organization. They're a championship-caliber team that knows how to maximize talent. The Liberty recently sold a minority stake at a $450 million valuation, the richest valuation ever for a women's sports team. That's an organization that invests in winning. Compare that to the Fever's approach. The Fever went 5-5 this season without Clark, most recently falling to the Los Angeles Sparks, 89-87. They're completely dependent on her, yet they can't seem to keep her healthy or use her effectively when she is healthy. That's not a sustainable model for success. The writing is on the wall when you look at how other teams view Clark versus how her own team treats her. The most damning evidence of White's disconnect with Clark comes from the offensive philosophy. White said her biggest concern is, when we reintegrate her, how do we continue to keep our ball movement and just getting the ball going, not just side to side, but baseline to baseline. Your biggest concern should be getting your best player back to one. She's basically passing the buck instead of taking responsibility for her players' health. The Liberty's approach to veteran leadership and player development is night and day compared to the Fever's. They've got a proven track record of maximizing talent and winning championships. The Fever? They're still trying to figure out how to use the most talented player in the league. What makes this situation even more infuriating is White's apparent inability to read the room. When you have a player of Clark's caliber dealing with injury issues, you don't make statements about ball movement and system integration. You focus on getting her healthy and building around her strengths. The fact that White keeps talking about fitting Clark into her system instead of adapting the system to Clark's strengths shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what she has. The injuries aren't just physical setbacks, they're mental ones too. Clark came into the league with an iron will and unshakable confidence. But when you're constantly dealing with physical issues and coaching staff that doesn't seem to fully grasp your value, that confidence can erode. The emotional reaction we saw after her latest injury wasn't just about the physical pain. It was about the frustration of feeling like her career is being mismanaged. Let's address the elephant in the room: the reported conversations between Clark, her agent, and Liberty players. When agents start having conversations with other organizations, that's not just friendly networking, that's business. Clark's agent wouldn't waste time on meaningless conversations, especially when their client is dealing with ongoing issues with their current team. The timing of these conversations is particularly telling. They're happening while Clark is dealing with injury issues and coaching philosophy clashes. That's not a coincidence. That's Clark's camp exploring their options because they're not satisfied with the current situation in Indiana. White's public comments about Clark's injuries have been consistently tone-deaf. Calling a groin injury that leaves your star player in tears a little something is the kind of statement that makes players question whether their coach truly understands or cares about their well-being.
I felt like our defensive energy, physicality, disruptiveness was better. We made it more difficult for them, moving the ball around the perimeter. We executed better in our ball screen defense.
It's the kind of statement that makes agents start making phone calls to other organizations. The contrast between how the Liberty organization operates and how the Fever operate is stark. The Liberty understand that championship organizations are built around maximizing their star players' strengths. They don't try to make Brianna Stewart or Sabrina Ionescu fit into some predetermined system. They build systems that allow those players to dominate. The Fever's approach under White has been the opposite. Instead of building around Clark's unique talents, they've tried to make her fit into their existing framework. That's backwards thinking that demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of how to build a championship-caliber organization. Clark's agent being present during conversations with Liberty players isn't just coincidental networking, it's strategic positioning. When you're dealing with a coach who doesn't seem to fully appreciate your client's value and can't keep them healthy, you start exploring other options. That's exactly what appears to be happening here. The most frustrating aspect of this entire situation is that it was completely preventable. White had the opportunity to build something special with Clark from day one. Instead, she's created a situation where her star player is constantly injured, frustrated with the coaching philosophy, and potentially looking elsewhere for her future. When you look at successful coach-superstar relationships throughout sports history, they're built on mutual respect and understanding. The coach adapts their system to maximize the star's strengths, while the star buys into the overall team concept. What we're seeing in Indiana is a coach who expects her star to adapt to her system without making corresponding adjustments. The writing is on the wall, and anyone who's been paying attention can see it. Clark's frustration with the injury situation, combined with White's tone-deaf responses and questionable coaching decisions, has created a perfect storm. The Liberty are positioned to take advantage of this situation, and they have the organizational competence to do so. The Fever better wake up before it's too late. Clark's patience has its limits, and the Liberty are offering everything Indiana isn't. competent coaching, championship culture, and proper star treatment. Stephanie White's karma is coming, and it's wearing a New York Liberty jersey. Like and subscribe for more WNBA reality checks.